And we continue on CBS News 24/7. I'm Reed Cowan. So August 1 is just days away. And so also is the deadline for nations to reach deals with the Trump administration over trade and tariffs. Here's Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick on CBS News Face the Nation yesterday, pretty fairly confident. He says those deals will happen and those tariffs will look pretty good after August 1.
10% is definitely going to stay. Many countries will pay higher, like Vietnam and Indonesia, right? They're 19 and 20%. Most countries will pay higher. The small countries are likely to be 10%, but the bigger countries are likely to pay higher. Tariffs are just going to reset the price level for imports, for certain imports from certain countries, but everybody was building in America. And remember, Donald Trump announced over $11 trillion of building in America. All that building in America, the construction jobs here, but then when those products come on the shelves, they come on much cheaper.
Much cheaper. Interesting. CBS News MoneyWatch correspondent Kelly OGrady joining me on a Monday. Okay, so Kelly, tariffs leading to lower prices, he says much cheaper. We're 6 months in now to the Trump presidency, and economists have said all along prices would go up. So which is it?
Well, I think what he was trying to say there is that because you're going to have higher prices, if you have a baseline 10% tariff, or as he mentioned, higher tariffs on a number of other countries, that's going to make the Made in America products be cheaper, even with higher labor costs. So more of an in comparison. I think what economists are trying to figure out now, though, is are we going to see a sort of long, sustained impact on prices where you see inflation ticking up and up? Remember, we got that consumer price index report last week, and we saw a little bit of an increase mainly due to tariffs. Or is this going to be a one-time price adjustment where you're going to see sort of everything pick up a little bit and then that's where it stays? You don't see things continue to increase. And that was what Secretary Lutnick was saying, that you would see sort of that readjustment, a resetting of imported goods, which would then in comparison make Made in America products cheaper. That is a theory. In practice, though, we're not going to be able to test that for months and years when it comes to American-made products because we don't have the infrastructure in many industries. And we also know that labor costs are higher here than they are in other countries. So I would say the jury is still out on that. But from an economic standpoint, most economists would disagree with the secretary.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking of iPhones just as one of hundreds of products that we could really drill down on and think about. So let's talk about the stock market. Despite the uncertainty ahead of this tariff deadline, the stock market really hasn't had a lot of earth-shattering news headlines. We've seen dips. We've seen moments where it was a little bit of a roller coaster, but largely, Kelly, we didn't see anything major. Why is that?
Well, investors like when the stock market is up. There's almost sort of this hope and trading on what we like to call animal spirits, maybe vibes instead of the actual data. But largely, we haven't seen, the economy fall off a cliff, the labor market fall off a cliff. We haven't seen, even though we have seen some price increases, we haven't seen inflation skyrocket. And so most of this tariff back and forth, we have baked into the market. Like you said, back in April, we had some really days that we have now completely erased, and we're at record highs for many of the indexes. So investors are looking at the situation saying, okay, we're sort of used to the uncertainty, the back and forth. We haven't seen the data in a dire place. It's only going to be when you start to see that trickle through, if we see it trickle through, where you're going to see investors really react in a visceral way.
Yeah, I look at my 401k tied to the market. It's not a scrambled egg. It's still a nest egg, but I always want to check in with you to make sure what the status is there at my financial dinner table. I have another question for you. Looking at Wall Street, it's really an important week right now with a string of companies giving us their earnings reports. What do they have to say?
Well, this is where your nest egg, thankfully it's not a scrambled egg, could see an impact. Because this week we are going to hear from big tech companies, including Google and Tesla. And these are sort of where investors are going to read the tea leaves and say, how are tariffs impacting what these companies are willing to spend, how they're dealing with the cost increases from tariffs, right? If you're a Tesla, for example. And that is an area where you could see the market react viscerally. If we hear from companies like we heard from Stellantis that tariffs are creating a huge impact on their bottom line, that's where you see investors start to get worried. So those two this week are going to be really important. And then going forward over the next couple of months, or rather the next month or so, we're going to hear from companies like Walmart, companies like Target, companies that are really going to see the impact of consumers maybe pulling back a little bit, as well as the increase in price from tariffs.
All right, Kelly O'Grady, I concur with my executive producer who just said in my ear, Kelly O'Grady always delivering sunny side up. Have a great day, friend. Extra protein on those eggs. Maybe I'm craving it.